Well, hi everyone, this is Bonnie in the Gertens Birding Department, and it's that time of year again for fall and winter birding. So many of you are still getting a couple hummingbirds. You will probably see females or juveniles coming down from the north. The males have now left. But please keep your hummingbird feeders out until you haven't seen one for almost 3 weeks. Now that flowers are dying back, these are the fueling stations that they need so desperately. So make sure you've got fresh nectar. Make your nectar, please make your nectar. And then have that hummingbird feeder out. If it gets really, really cold at night, bring it in and then put it out first thing in the morning so it's not freezing. So clean those out. I always clean mine out at the end of the year with the little ports on there. They have a tendency to get moldy. So pull those ports out if you can. Put them in bleach and hot water. Let them sit for a couple hours, and that should do the trick, getting all that black mold out. We don't do that enough during the season, but at the end of the season, that's what you should be doing. If you're just cleaning your feeders out, overall, try not to put it in the dishwasher because it can leave some soap residue, but use just hot water and distilled vinegar. Works like a charm. As far as all your nesting boxes, so for me, it'd be my wren boxes and wood duck houses. Clean all that old material out because, again, it's past brooding season now. Clean all of that out, and if you want, you can certainly put them back up because you'll find in blizzards and snowstorms, you'll get a lot of little chickadees. I've seen them before, where 2 or 3 will go into a box and they just huddle up together. If you don't want to keep your bird houses up, I would highly recommend using a roosting house. This is not a bird house. This is a roosting house. So some people leave them up because they think it's a bird house. The only type of bird you're going to get in here to nest is a bird you don't want, and that would be a house sparrow. And that's a very invasive species. They're really not native to this country, and they've decimated the bluebird population, but house sparrows will stay around all winter long. And if you put this up during the summer, they'll probably use it for a nesting box. They're not going to use it as a nesting box in the winter. No bird will, but they will roost in there when it's nice and cold. So think about putting a roosting nest up or roosting box up. Now, these are only going to last about 2 or 3 years. They're very inexpensive, but with rain and snow on them, they're not meant to last. That's why a lot of people end up just putting their birdhouses back up after they've cleaned them out. You want to clean them out because a lot of times mice will shimmy up and go in there. You'll get a lot of spider eggs and mites in there. When you're cleaning them out, I highly recommend you use a mask and put on some good garden gloves to wipe that all out. Now we're going to talk about seeds. Some people don't feed their birds in the winter. They don't think that's necessary. As far as I'm concerned, that's a really critical time for birds to be fed. Summer, not so much because there's plenty of insects and seed available. But now that flowers are dying off, that's again why it's so important to have your hummingbird feeders still up. But now we've got our winter birds like cardinals and goldfinches and house finches and nuthatches and chickadees. All the birds that we love, the beautiful songbirds, they will stay here. Warblers and some of the other migratory birds like indigo buntings, rose-breasted grosbeaks, they're on their way out. For the songbirds, the right type of seed to use, and most of you have seen this because you've seen my videos before, my favorite seed is going to be Gertens Cardinal Blend, and it's called the Deluxe Cardinal Mix. It only has 4 ingredients in it. The beauty of this, it attracts every songbird. It's got black oilers, it's got the hearts of the oilers, it's got white safflower, and it's got little pieces of peanuts. So you get great, great songbirds. In fact, I'm not even using Niger anymore because my goldfinches absolutely adore this stuff. So that's saving me money on finch mix or the Niger thistle. The other thing I highly recommend, and it is pricier, however, you really want the best songbirds, get this stuff too. It's called golden safflower. And you'll see the difference if you look at a bag of white safflower. It's obviously going to be white. This has got more oils and fats in it. So the golden safflower really gives that pump of energy to our songbirds. If it's too pricey for some people, and I understand that, I just mix it in with my cardinal mix so that they're getting a full supply of the golden safflower plus the seed that they love. I use this basically from November, as it starts to get really cold, until the middle or end of March. And then I'm not using it anymore. A lot of people, this is the only seed they want to use because squirrels find it very bitter. Now, will squirrels eat anything? They will. Now for woodpeckers, And that would also be any type of tree clinging bird. That could be flickers, that could be even a nuthatch. This is what I highly recommend. If you end up getting a small little cage, like so, you might get a bigger woodpecker that lands on it, but they will not stay because they need to balance their stiff tail feathers. So they can land on this, but as they try and feed, their tail feathers go underneath the feeder, so they won't stay long. With this great feeder, you can put 2 cakes in it, and there's the bad boy that everybody would love to have, woody woodpecker. That's the pileated. People love seeing those birds. And they put their toes on the grid here, and then their stiff tail feathers balance on what's called a tail prop or tail rest. It really is worth the money. These are sustainable. They're made out of plastic water bottles. They don't chip. They don't lose their color. They don't splinter. They don't have staples. You can open it up to clean it and just pull the screens out to clean. So I love this suet feeder. Highly recommend investing in that. For those of you that love blue jays like I do, some people don't. They call them bully birds. I love them. They're in the corvid family of what they call crows. This is my favorite feeder, and I put peanuts in the shell in here. And I put that out in the morning. I fill it up to the top. I get about 9 blue jays. I swear they wait for me because I've been doing this for about 8 years now. They finish it, and off they go. They don't come back. They don't bother my other bird feeders. They've had their fill of peanuts. It's so much fun to have blue jays, even though they are noisy. They also warn other songbirds of any kind of predator in the area. It could be a Cooper's hawk. It could be a cat going through the yard. So they'll warn off the other smaller songbirds, and you'll watch them just be paralyzed on a feeder when the blue jays start screeching. It's always fun to look out your window when you hear that, or when you hear crows squawking. There's usually something out there that they don't like. So this is just a great feeder. Now, do I use this all year round? I do. But if you just want to use it in the winter, it's worth every penny. I love this feeder. And again, you put peanuts in the shell in here. And then many of you know I love this feeder. It's my absolute, I've had it for 9 years. The most often asked questions that I get in the birding department is, how do you get rid of squirrels? Well, you don't. And like my friends say, Bonnie, you built a house on their property. So you've got to expect they live in trees. They're going to be in the yard. But if you want to live in harmony with them, get this feeder. It is the only one that's got a lifetime warranty against squirrel damage. It's by Droll Yankees, which is really the Rolls Royce of feeders. And the great thing about it is this one was created, this is called the Whipper, and this was created and designed for northern cardinals. As many of you know, and you've learned this from me, cardinals, everyone wants cardinals. Cardinals need to face their food, meaning they need either a wide open tray or a wide perch. So this really kind of fits the bill. It's these spring-loaded perches on here. They don't collapse like a lot of these feeders do, where the ports close. Some of those feeders, a squirrel banks on them enough and it will just hang. They've wrecked the mechanism. And now you're out of a $50, $60, $80 bird feeder. This one, they're just collapsible. They're on springs. And it works out so well because when a squirrel shimmies down, it's 21 inches long. Most people know they hang their back legs from a handle and get their feet, their little front paws into the food port. They can't do that with this because it's 21 inches long. They can't shimmy down the tube because it's about 5 3/4 inch wide. So as they slide down, they hit the springs on that and they're off. And the great thing about this is it's weight loaded for up to the size of a cardinal. So when grackles or jays get on here, they shake it a little bit. So when that happens, they don't want to stay on there and then they fly away. So think about if you want to invest in a great bird feeder. I'm not kidding you. I've had it 9 years. The only damage in those 9 years, I've got some teeth marks on the cap because squirrels are notorious for chewing through metal on top of everything else. So this is zinc die cast on the cap and the base of it is zinc die cast. The handles are stainless steel. The perches are stainless steel. They cannot lift it. They cannot chew through it. And again, if it gets knocked off by a squirrel, even if it's 8 years later and you don't have your receipt, you take a picture of it. Droll Yankees will either give you replacement parts or they will give you a new feeder if it's unusable. If you don't have squirrels and you want cardinals, remember that rule of thumb. They need to face their food, which means they need either an open tray or a wide perch. So think of it that way. Any tube feeders that have little pegs on them, they're not going to stay because they can land on a peg, but as they turn to the food port, it's too tight for them. As winter approaches, think about mealworms. I have robins all year long by using mealworms. Now, they're not going to go up on a feeder. They're ground feeders. So if you've got squirrels, that's going to be a problem because squirrels will eat the mealworms. I've used a cookie tray and then I zip tie, or you could use a broiler pan and you zip tie the grid on it so that they can put their beaks through the grid, but squirrels can't get their feet in there to pull the worms out. So I have robins all year long because I've supplied them with mealworms. And if you have crabapple trees, you're going to get crabapples. That's the other thing. Obviously, they can't get worms. The ground is going to be frozen. Use this for cleaning. Use a nice long brush. You should, because of the avian bird flu that we've had in the past, make sure that you clean out your feeders and your bird baths regularly. So for those of you that have bird baths, most people just wash them out and they put them away for the season. I have robins, I have birds all year long because I have a heated bird bath. Now, try not to use a ceramic bird bath because little birds have a tendency to feel the depth perception. They might slide in. If you're worried about them taking a bath in the winter, my suggestion, I've never had that really happen, but get some poultry fencing and cut a circle around the bird bath and then crimp it down so now the birds can stand on that poultry fencing and dip their beaks through it. But most birds, they're not total bird brains. They really do not want to be taking a flipping bird bath. So get one of these and you're going to have birds. They can live for a couple days without food, but water is imperative. They cannot melt that in their beaks. It takes way too much energy. I just use a watering can and again, tip the water out, refresh it daily, especially if they're going to the bathroom in it because that nature's their toilet. So make sure that you clean all that out, any kind of scuzz around there, but it should be clean. You want to rake up all the moldy seed under your feeders because birds, and I'm sure many of you have seen it, where a bird will have its eye closed, they can't see out of it. They've lost some of the feathers around their eye. That's a major form of conjunctivitis, and that can be from moldy seed. If it's moldy and it's wet, it can really harm your songbirds because those that feed on the ground, sometimes cardinals will go on the ground, mourning doves like to be on the ground, or even any kind of ducks. The problem with the bird flu is they were shedding the virus, and that's why so many raptors that had killed ducks got the bird flu, and many of them died at the Raptor Center. If you have any comments, I will be happy to answer any questions as I see them come along. Continue to feed birds in the winter. It's really critical, and keep your feeders clean. Thanks, everyone.